Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this as simple and straightforward as possible and try to make it as quick as I can. Um, we only need 6 more VPs, right? And right now we are not making that much progress on either front. That's both the west and the east, and in the middle, that's Deadlands. We haven't been able. Well, we've been able to counterattack the Wardens and kept it at a stalemate, basically. So that is an acceptable state of affairs right there. But right now, as everyone has probably realized, my initial estimates of the server dying out in a week, that was wrong. It's dying out a lot faster than I thought it would. So we have a problem with manpower, which means that we can't play Foxhole the conventional way that it's usually played, all right? We have to adapt a little bit more. And the good thing is that there are quite a few vets here from Baker, the last Baker for War in 25, that have seen this happen before. And in that event, we were on the losing side. We were the Colonials and we lost that war. And the big reason why was that the Wardens had the pop advantage there, right? Now, in this case here, on Charlie 4, this is probably going to be the last Charlie War. We have the pop advantage, right? The casualty ratio so far indicates so. And at the state that most of the regiments, both on our side and the Wardens, quite a lot of them have both moved away. So we have probably a very slight advantage, but it's still an advantage and something that we can utilize. The only way that we get around this to winning this war is if we play our hand right, okay? What limited manpower we have now, we have to conserve and make sure we are able to retain it. In Baker 25, what happened was everyone still tried to play Foxhole conventionally, which is take territory, build it up, defend it from a counterattack, and then take the next territory, build it up, defend it from counterattack. And whoever sees the initiative first has that. If they can keep up the tempo, they will eventually reach the back lines and win. They take all the VPs. We can't afford to do that because we have limited manpower, and therefore all the time and the resources that we're going to utilize here, we have to make sure that it's focused and utilized in a way that helps us, basically, right? To our advantage. And I'll get into detail here about how we're going to go about that. But what little manpower that all the regiments that are still active on our side, if we just pull that together and focus on strategy, we will be able to win. It is possible. The Wardens did this in Baker 25, and in this case, we can do it. And we don't need to go that far for victory because we're already at 18 out of the 24 VPs. So the way that I've planned this out is that the first thing that we need to do is just make sure that all of the assets that we do have that we are not going to be able to rebuild, we should keep on to that. And this mainly is whatever tier 3 defenses that we have currently that has been built and maintained, we should retain to that. So on the Eastern Front, that's basically the Bats and Skirmisher. Both these areas are well built up, and these are basically our fortresses on the Eastern Front. All we need to do now to hold on to that is just create depth in the areas around them. So if we look here at the map, the highlighted areas, these are basically the areas between our main fortresses and the enemy, the Warden's main fortresses, which is basically centered around the VPs in the area. So we have Maiden's Vale and Marvin Hollow and Saltbrook Channel in Endless Shore. All the area between the Bats and Skirmisher and these 2 points, all we have to do is just keep it tech down, right? We don't have the time or the resources to go in, capture, build it up, and then move on to the next one. But if we do that, we're going to exhaust ourselves, not just in terms of resources, but in the time and manpower, right? People are just not going to want to play that sort of game, especially for an extended period of time. So all we need to do is go in, hit, and tap all of these territories here. If there are people holding on to them, then okay, that's fine, that's good. But for our group here that we're organizing, I believe that this is the best way we can utilize what little manpower we have left in order to win the war. So we focus first on trying to keep all these territories here tech down. The reason behind that is to deny it to any Warden organized resistance on their side. if they try to attack the Bats or Skirmisher, they will have to overextend themselves across these territories, which they are also suffering from the lack of manpower. So if they do try to do that, they open themselves up to a very easy counterattack, which we are able to do because the way that we've been operating so far has been a lot of mobile warfare with armor units. It's just almost pure armor. We don't have any dedicated artillery. We don't have any dedicated infantry support and no combat engineers, but that's fine. It's something that we can do because, as I said, the Wardens are also suffering from manpower shortages. So they are not going to be able to organize any proper combined arms units like just the same as we're struggling to do now, and that's okay because we have a good group, a lot of experienced tankers. We just need to focus our efforts into a organized fixed objective, and we should be fine. Now, the second phase from this is after we have achieved this, and for the most part, at this point in time of the war, we've already tacked down all these territories. The exception being Old Jack Tar here. That's the last real stronghold they have that's on the perimeter. That's a nice isolated objective that we can achieve by knocking it out, taking it down, and wiping out the defenses there. But for the most part, all these territories that I've highlighted, we've already managed to take down, and the Wardens have also given up in trying to counterattack and build it up. We've also extended operations into Deadlands, and we've pretty much taken down the entire hex for the most part. The Wardens have lost pretty much any progress that they've made over the last 2 days in both the base upgrades and the equipment that they've poured into there. So that's very good. But right now, we're going into the second phase. Our objectives now are to try identify the weaknesses in Maiden's Veil and Saltbrook Channel. So, as I've said, this is going to be different than how normal folks do it in Foxhole. We're not going to be building up any of our defenses along the way from, in this case, for example, if we want to take Maiden's Veil, all these territories in between, we don't bother trying to build up with defenses. We just leave it as it is. What we do then is we, on a daily basis, we scout out and probe the defenses of Maiden's Veil. If we're taking an example of this as the first objective, which we're not tied down to. We can also prioritize Saltbrook if we want. For the example for this video, we just say Maiden's Veil. For our daily operations, all we need to do is go in, scout out the area, identify the weaknesses, and if there is a decent group of around like 3 to 5 people that are online daily, what we need to do then is try to sabotage the defenses and the logistics, right? I have to emphasize that we should not be trying to knock out the seaport constantly, because if we keep on trying to knock out the coastal guns, the seaports, or any of the buildings around without tapping the town base, we're just tipping them off of how we are able to infiltrate the defenses. We want to keep them in the dark for the most part, and if we can, depending on which areas we attack in Maiden's Veil, try not to use the routes that that we could utilize for the main effort. And the main effort here will be any large operation that we are going to mount. In the event like the previous operations that Buds has run lately. A large armor force, and we're going to need to tweak this a little bit because we haven't been using siege tanks lately, but a large armor force of around 6 tanks, and we have a couple of ballistas or Taloses in that mix. That will be more than enough to go into Maiden's Veil, the town base, knock it out, and then tap it. The main success for an offensive operation at this point is if we can just tap the town base, everything else falls apart. All right. Once the town base is tapped, we can always follow up with smaller attacks to knock out the seaport, the coastal gun, and the factories. That can always be done later. But the big main problem that we have now is trying to infiltrate the defenses and tap the town base. The second main objective that we have is to try and deactivate the defenses around Maiden's Veil, which at this point is centered around a bunker base core that's just southwest of the town base. It's actually pretty open from the west, and we'll get to the details later. But for now, phase 2 operation is just trying to focus on the VPs alone. We don't expend resources trying to go around to any of the far flanks, and we don't try to engage any fortresses or strongholds that the Wardens have. For example, here at Endless Shore, they have a very large bunker base with a storm. Well, they had a storm cannon. Not too sure if they're trying to rebuild it now. It's all the way here in the middle. We can just bypass that. There's no need to go in and lay siege to that. We don't have the time or the manpower to do so. Just go straight for the objectives and knock them out. Now, right now, the main groups that we've been able to identify as Buds. They have the most manpower among our group. 33 AD has got quite a lot of experienced tankers with them. I'm not too sure if they'd be interested in getting in on this plan, but if they are, then this right here, Buds RSC in 33 AD for the EU time zone. That's more than enough manpower to try to achieve what we're trying to get done. If R&R can be our dedicated logi, that would help out in terms of the time and resources aspect. It would allow our frontline units to just focus on the combat. Because right now, if everybody is suffering from manpower shortages, trying to do the logi work and the combat is going to stress a lot of people out and going to burn out people faster. I'm not too sure who is manning the defenses at Bats and Skirmisher. If anybody does know, please let me know, because it would be quite nice to get them on board. Because I think they would be very happy to know that their efforts are being utilized in like an indirect way. There are fortresses that we're going to hold behind and then strike out from. And if they know that there are people actually actively working on trying to do something, and that we depend on the defenses still remaining there, I think that would keep them in the war a little bit longer. The last part here, the reason I bring this up is that in Baker 25, the Wardens had just enough manpower to also operate artillery units. I don't think we're going to be able to do that, especially in the EU time zone. But as I've said, I don't think we really need it. As long as the armor units can adapt to try figure out how to destroy the Warden's main tier 3 bunker defenses, we'll be fine. And we don't need to do it all at one go. We just need to do it one at a time. Because remember, at this point in the war, if we knock out a concrete bunker base, the Wardens are not going to be able to rebuild it, all right? They are just too open to attack, and I really doubt that they have the manpower or time to be constantly rebuilding it. Take, for example, Maiden's Veil. I was operating in this area all the way at the start of the war, and the defenses back then were pretty impressive. It was far superior than the state it is now. And right now, some of the areas of the bunker base are in a state of decay. That just goes to show that whoever is manning the defenses at Maiden's Veil, they are unable to cope with trying to maintain such a large defensive emplacement like that. So, if anybody got confused about how chipping away with armor was gonna work out at this point here, that's what we're getting at here. It takes a lot of time to build up to a concrete bunker base, and it also takes a lot of supplies to maintain it. And at this point in the war, with manpower shortages, once you take out a tier 3 base, it's not coming back anytime soon. The demoralization effect of knocking it out, especially at this late in the war, is much higher than it would have been at the earlier phases of this war. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at here. For the main fortresses that we're attacking, once we hit them and take them down, they're not coming back. That's why, unlike trying to hold the defenses in the no man's land, this is why it's more effective and more efficient. This right here, once it's knocked out and done for, it ain't coming back. And once it is tech down to below tier 3, it makes it much easier for our armor force to go in and knock out. Because tier 1 and tier 2 defenses, the gap between the toughness and the amount of firepower needed to destroy those compared to tier 3, it's a pretty large gap difference. All right. So yeah, I hope that clears that part up. But yeah, if anybody's interested in this plan or has any questions, you just message me. Trying to get more people in on it. But it is something that we can achieve right now. Usually, with the numbers that we have, if this was a normal war, this would be an awful plan. But this is a completely different playing field and a completely different game right now, and it's one of a kind of situation. It only happens when a server is about to die out like this. So yeah, thanks for watching my video all the way through.